You always want to start off these videos with a bit of history, talk about said company's struggles to produce said product and, where they see themselves in the future. I'm not going to do that with AMD though. I'm not going to do that with Vega in particular because, it's not all that great. Look, AMD did a great thing with their CPU department. They brought a solid compute performance for a price that absolutely shattered Intel's offering. Price to performance, that is. The i7-7700K is still the best gaming CPU on the market thanks to its high IPC and overclockability, but you have to shell out $300 for it, whereas for the same price on the red team, you could get an 8-core 16-thread counterpart, an awesome, excellent compute performance chip that'll really boost your times, reduce your times actually when it comes to video editing and rendering, and then also give you still solid gaming performance. Not the best performance, but still pretty darn close. So we expected this with Ryzen going into it, the price to performance king. And I said before launch that Ryzen would never crush Intel in gaming, but that wasn't the point. AMD's competitive advantage with CPUs was the bargain offered, how you could get so close to matching Intel performance for significantly less moolah, in terms of gaming that is. And it's why the red team has such a devout and loyal fan base. But the buck stops here. You see, AMD battles on two fronts. They've been doing pretty good against Intel. They've pretty much shut them out when it comes to any bargain CPU at all. I don't really know why you'd even want to buy an i5 at this point. And if you want to go as low as, I don't know, a Pentium or an i3, you might as well just buy the similarly priced quad-core CPUs from the red team. But when it comes to red versus green, we've got a serious problem here. AMD is no longer the price to performance king when it comes to graphics cards. Not that they really were in the first place. They always tried to do that with CPUs, but with graphics cards, they just have a different marketing approach. And I've got to say, as of right now, given the current price structures of Vega, it's not looking too great. The Vega lineup falls into the fourth category of GCN architecture and sports some pretty cool features, at least on paper. Among these is AMD's Infinity Fabric, similar in design to Threadripper's multi-core layout. As a result, we've got a huge die with Vega, nearly 500 cubic millimeters compared to the 1080 Ti's 300 or so. The 56 and 64 also boast nearly twice the number of transistors compared to the Ti. Seriously though, the specs for Vega are pretty insane. So you got high bandwidth memory, you got over 4,000 stream processors, I think over 11 teraflops of compute performance. That's all incredible on paper, great, but I really don't care about any of those. The number I care about is the number I see in the top left corner of my screen when I play games, and that's the frame rate. So I use the same i7-6700K overclocked to 4.6 GHz, just picture it in my hand right here, 16 GB of DDR4 clocked to 3000 MHz, and swapped my 1080 and 1080 Ti for the liquid-cooled Vega 64 graphics card. I've got to say, this card looks beautiful. I'm a huge fan of the backplate, AIO integration, and metallic finish, though I do wish the tubing here on the AIO was a bit shorter. I had to kind of improvise here. Price though, we'll discuss this a bit later. I tested in 1440p to leverage the GPU just a bit more. Not too many people are gaming in 4K at the moment, so I think that 1440p is a pretty good middle ground. I mean, there are plenty of 4K benchmarks everywhere else on YouTube. But really, the benchmarks that you're looking at right now are all that are needed to tell the full story. Honestly, I expected a bit more here. I mean, the specs for Vega are insane. Transistor count HBM, like I said, these cards are loaded, but the V64 isn't outperforming the GTX 1080 in literally anything, and it, mind you, is priced higher than the 1080 currently, and the 1080 Ti, which is priced almost identically, is absolutely destroying it, and while consuming significantly less power, mind you. These are all at stock clocks, by the way. The one game showing anything other than absolute defeat is the Doom benchmark. Vulkan gives Vega an edge here, no doubt, 1% and 0.1% low state above its 1080 counterpart, showing that added stability in game, but across the board, the 1080 Ti, which really we should be looking at here because this is the card that's priced almost the same as the V64 counterpart, is still the best graphics card in general consumer price ranges, and by that I mean under $1,000, which is still pretty excessive. $600 is a lot to ask for any component in a PC, but with the Ti you're getting massive performance jumps over Vega 64. Once the mining craze relaxes and the dust settles around these MSRPs, I do expect this card to maybe fall just slightly under the 1080 Ti's average asking price. If it doesn't, that's worse news for Vega 64. I'm hoping that this price does drop significantly within the next month or so. I hope AMD and its third-party vendors realize that this card is just it's not going to sell very well at the current price. There's no way. Why would you buy this card if you could buy a 1080 Ti that would blow it out of the water for the exact same price? Look, at 500 US, V64 is a compelling offer. Sure, it liberally draws power, but it gives the GTX 1080 a run for its money. Competition is a good thing. It doesn't win in literally any average FPS benchmark, but at least it sticks around. And that's the other thing I want to discuss here. Look, I don't really understand why Vega is receiving so much negativity in the press. I understand the pricing scheme, whatever you want to call it, scandal. Okay, AMD kind of screwed us there, and a lot of reviewers were pissed off because we originally recommended Vega, and then once the price went up, we had to go back and say, well, we don't really recommend it anymore because it just makes no sense. I mean, the 1080 Ti for Vega 64 is going to blow it away. I'm going to keep saying that because you need to know that. Do not buy this card at this current price point. It makes no sense at all. And by the way, the AIO tacked onto here, it's pretty loud, and it really doesn't do that great a job at getting rid of heat from the card. I mean, you get a little extra overclocking headroom, but I didn't even bother touching that because the card's going to throttle itself anyway. But what I really don't understand regarding the negative press is why people are so upset that Vega is only performing on par with its NVIDIA counterparts. Look, they expected Vega 64 to absolutely destroy the 1080 Ti in almost every title. They, I mean, like the die-hard, devout fanboys who really thought that Vega was going to be like their saving grace, right? I no longer have to choose from the green team, I can just choose from the red team because they're going to make an awesome card that's going to destroy everything in its path. And mind you, at a great price point. Vega is none of those things, okay? Vega is just an alternative, and that's really all it's meant to be. AMD hasn't been looking for the budget-conscious consumer in graphics card markets because they sell all right anyway. I mean, people are still going to buy Vega because it's an AMD card, and that's just a fact. So the gist of this graphics card review really has nothing to do with the benchmarks, which is probably the first time that has ever happened. That's why I only benchmarked 4 games. Those are the only games I needed to benchmark to know what I needed to tell all of you. If you want 40 benchmarks, check out Hardware Unboxed. Steve is the benchmarking king, okay? But 4 is all I needed to tell you this. At $600, Vega's not worth it. Vega 64 is not worth it. I'm going to review Vega 56 in a separate review, but spoiler alert, the story is kind of the same. It's still a bit pricier than the 1070, which it is targeting, and it just, I don't know, it just feels like they didn't really plan this out correctly. I mean, look, it looked decent on paper. The original prices looked great, but now that these rebates and these bundles are kind of just like dissolving into thin air, we're left with MSRPs that really aren't appealing for Vega at all, 56 or 64. And if you stick an AIO onto it, add another 100 or 200 bucks, just stay away. But I wouldn't necessarily call this a flop for AMD, maybe just growing pains. It is disappointing to see them not follow suit with the Budget King mindset on their CPU side, but Vega was really only meant to compete with NVIDIA, not shut them out in the same way that they did with Intel. I've got to say though, until prices relax a bit, because these prices are pretty ostentatious right now, I don't expect many Vega sales, except from the die-hard AMD fans and those who are really interested in the strong compute performance that Vega cards offer, like the 4000 plus stream processor is pretty incredible there. The problem is though, either these games just aren't optimized for Vega yet, or the drivers are still in their primitive states, or you just look at it from a price standpoint and say, nah, these cards aren't worth it. And as I'll discuss in my detailed V56 review, these cards do not outperform their intended rivals. Ouch. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you appreciate the honesty, be sure to give it a thumbs up. I do appreciate it. Be sure to click the subscribe button if you haven't already. And stay tuned for more content like this on the channel. Several reviews on the way because several boxes were here when I came back from Europe. This is Science Studio. Thanks for learning with us.